Hi, my name is Jillian Friedman, and I'm going to have a short lesson for you today on first, second, and third person, grammatically speaking, and also in the sense of narrators in literature. So let's get started. All right. So by the end of this little mini lesson, I hope that you'll come away being able to identify the meaning of first, second, and third person when we're speaking about grammar, and also, and more importantly, when we're speaking about narrators. So this chart gives you an overview of the grammatical terms first, second, and third person and examples of each. So the way I always remember the difference between first, second, and third person is thinking that I am the most important person in my life. You are the second most important person in my life. And those people out there, they, them, he, she, it, they are the third person. So, first person pronouns, and remember, a pronoun is just a word that replaces a noun, and these specifically are personal pronouns that change for person, first, second, and third. So, the first person pronouns are I and me in the singular, we, us in the plural. The second person pronoun does not change singular or plural, so it is you both ways. This is the reason, actually, in English, the English language, that we have words like y'all and you all, because sometimes you want a plural second person pronoun, but there really isn't one, grammatically speaking, in the English language. And then in third person, the pronouns are he, she, it, and they and them in the plural. So when we apply these terms and this grammar to analyzing literature, we can talk about the different kinds of narrators that exist in genres like poetry and novels. So these diagrams kind of visually show you the difference between a first, second, and third person narrator. And when you're talking about this, what it really affects in the literature is the point of view through which you, the reader, are seeing and understanding things. So a first person narrator is inside of the story. It's a character within the story who is speaking as I, or possibly we. The second person narrator is connected to the story in that that second person narrator is making you, the reader, a character. This is a very rare kind of narrator because it's difficult to maintain throughout a piece. But in second person, the narrator would be making you, the reader, an active participant in the story. The third person narrator is the most common kind of narrator, and the third person narrator is solidly outside of the story. And that narrator is looking in at events and reporting on them using pronouns like he and she, and also using characters' names. So this narrator is outside the story, so common and complicated and versatile, this narrator, that there are several different kinds, like an omniscient narrator and a limited narrator. But those terms are a lesson for another day. So let's look at some examples here. This is an excerpt from a poem called The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silent champed the grasses of the forest's ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. So this is a third good example of a third person narrator. There's a character, the traveler. The character is spoken about using his name and also pronouns like his and he. The second example is a really nice example of a second person narrator who's turning you, the reader, into a part of the story. Two-lane roads, all curves and dips, dark woods, a stream, a patchy acre of teasel and grass. You don't see the deer till they turn their heads, road full of eyeballs, small moons glowing. You crank the wheel, stamp both feet on the brake, skid and jolt into the ditch. And here you see that you, the you in the poem, is you, the reader. And you become the driver here who's trying to avoid this deer. Finally, I have an example, a beautiful example of a first person narrator. The poem is Mother to Son, and I'm going to let Viola Davis read it to
Mother to Son by Langston Hughes. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare, but all.
So I'd love to play all of this. It's a beautiful recording. If you have time, you can come back and check it out on the presentation. But here you see that the character is a mother speaking to her son, and she's inside the story speaking as I. Great example of a first person narrator. So now, if there were time permitting in this lesson, I would turn to some practice and I would work with examples from literature, having the student read them to me in some cases, me reading them to the student, and making sure that they're able to identify the type of narrator. And I prepared some practice, but of course, for this short lesson, there won't be time. And so that concludes my lesson on pronouns, both grammatically speaking and in literature. Hope to see you again. Have a great day.